Things become more obvious when you have to look at them because they're personally relevant. Something looks like a non-issue if it's not something you've had to examine. So something like gender. I think people who haven't had experiences that differ from the norm, it's maybe not obvious that that's a lot of different categories. I know we had to examine it in ourselves, both in learning that we were a system and in becoming aware that we are part of the LGBTQIA+ community. There's been a lot of introspection in our own identities, and something we learned is that gender is actually made up of loads of different things. A lot of it is cultural, it's different between different cultures, has been different through different periods of history. Is not so binary as we're taught in the society we're in. And some of it is dictated by society, some of it is innate and is dictated by core, unchangeable values and qualities about ourselves that we have no control over, much like sexuality. Like gender identity being the innate sense of who you are at your core, which can align with your birth sex or cannot. Could be anywhere on a spectrum, really. If it's on the spectrum somewhere, male, female, somewhere in between, if your birth sex, say, was female, and you know that that doesn't feel congruent with who you are, you have a sense of yourself. You can just know. This is obvious through parts of the body not feeling at home, feeling wrong. Sometimes it's more just a cognitive sense of the way you experience yourself internally, of the things that you know apply to you when you're watching a film, the lead characters that you're taking notice of, identifying with, learning from when you grow up. And the genders could be something you notice or something you don't.
So, gender presentation versus gender identity. We had a cool kind of moment that made me think about it more today, because these aren't my clothes, or like, it's half of them are and half of them are not. And somebody saw us who like kind of knows us and saw like the makeup and the like some of the clothes and went, "Oh, hey, Vi," and I was just like, "Oh, I'm just stuck in her clothes," because like there's a lot of people in this body and we have our own individual clothes, we have different genders, and the people who know us like know who's fronting, and you can guess based on the clothes. But sometimes like it's not a controllable thing when we switch, so we end up like wearing each other's clothes, and I'll end up in the front when somebody else has gotten dressed. So in this case, Vi, who's a girl, got dressed in her clothes, and I am a guy and I end up in her makeup and stuff. And like I've got my jacket and my hat, which is part of like what makes me feel comfortable because they're mine, so that's part of my like gender presentation. But the gender presentation that you might look at, like the longer hair and the makeup and stuff, that are like more stereotypically associated with female presentations, is also part of the gender presentation of like how people would view me. And it's just a good reminder not to make assumptions based on that, because like I am not a girl, even though I've got girls stuff on. And this is just a reason for us why it can be different, like the gender identity can differ from the gender presentation. So what someone assumes they're seeing might not be the case, but other people have a lot of different reasons for it. Not just like DID in our case. Like, people might want to just explore outside the binary of what they're used to, you know? Like, guys can wear makeup, and girls is like way more accepted for a girl to wear a suit now and stuff. So the presentation could be different, even though like how they see themselves internally, the gender identity could be like a woman or a girl. They could still be presenting in a more masculine presentation by choosing to wear a suit. And like you just don't know whether or not someone's gender identity, like the actual gender they are inside and how they see themselves and what their brain is. Like, you don't know if the insides match the outsides for lots of different reasons. There are biological reasons, there are sociological reasons, there's like kind of a lot of reasons. So that's one reason for us. If you want to learn more about like the difference between gender presentation and gender identity and gender expression, you can just do a quick Google of the genderbread man, and that's just a good like Google images will bring you up a little gingerbread person, and that'll show you like kind of how these things work on a spectrum.
A way being in the community has really helped me is to examine my own assumptions, and like if I see somebody that's kind of more masc presenting, I'll automatically think he, and then I'll catch it and remind myself that I don't know this person's internal sense of self. Like, I don't experience them as they experience themselves, and what I'm seeing might not match who they are, so try to just use they them pronouns before I know, until somebody tells me, or if I ask somebody for their pronouns, I just try to default to they them, so that I'm not making any assumption based off of any clues, because there's a lot of different reasons that those things might not align. Like, there are reasons for us, and one reason could be that maybe somebody's gender identity wouldn't be accepted by their family or their community, so they have to kind of mask and hide it. So they might be really uncomfortable and feel very unseen in the clothes they're wearing and the way they're presenting to the world, but they may need to do it because of safety, and it can still help not to make assumptions about their gender identity and ask what pronouns somebody wants to use, because they might be really happy to be able to be themselves just for a moment in front of somebody and be seen for who they are in that way.